Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone, wherever you may be. And it's morning, evening, afternoon for you. Hi, we are here live on Facebook. Our panel is ready to speak. And it is the 16th of September, and it is supposed to be a special day today. It is New Moon Day. So, what I would recommend, if you can do a little bit more meditation today, um, use this time very judiciously. So I will introduce you to the panel. Of course, we have Eileen, as always. She's going to help us with the Q&A and her wisdom. We have Kelly, our Qigong teacher. We have Travis, who is a musician, a spiritual teacher in his own right. Louise, our author, and April, who's also a spiritual teacher, a healer, a psychic medium. So I wouldn't go into your resume too long. Thank you. So I wanted to start off today with welcoming all of you. It is a really special day, and I've heard of comments already about it being up and down. So if there is up and down, then we are the ones that are going to hold presence, and our panel is here to help you with that. Even on Facebook, as you'll join us with presence. And I'll start off with a question that actually Vera posted last time. I saw this question come through, like I read the Facebook Live post, and he had posted this question towards the end. And it said, "Hi Poonam, I'm highly sensitive person and gets overwhelmed easily with blame, hurt, comments. How can I manage myself, please?" So we are into highly sensitive person gets overwhelmed easily with blame, hurt, comment. Travis, I'll start off with you. Did you want to speak on it, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. The first thing that comes to mind for me is and then again, this comes from my own experience, is in dealing with things feeling like too much and anxiety, or feel a pressure, it feels too frantic, the energy, or overwhelming. If one can elongate the breath and slow the breathing down, that's going to slow down the mental response, the mental chatter and commentary and interpretation of whatever the stimulus is, the input is, and create a little bit more of a gap. And that's going to put the person a little bit, back in the driver's seat, because it sounds like that's part of it, is you have that sense where it feels overwhelming and you're not in control anymore, in that healthy way of being in control. It's always limited in relative control, but there is a certain amount of feeling in charge of your own space, and you don't want to feel overridden by stimulus or forces coming in. And so I know for me, it sounds so simple, and it is, but just to deepen and elongate the breath like that, and being able to continually do that, that's what I would recommend. That's my 2 cents on that.
Thank you so much, Travis.
Yeah.
And as Eckhart says, one conscious breath is enough. 2
Yeah.
or 3 is even better. So thank you for that input. I appreciate it. Luis, did you have something?
So what came to me was that, and I think maybe because this is something that I've been doing for the last couple of weeks because a lot of stuff's been coming up. And so I was thinking that if he's feeling like highly sensitive and having these irritations and upsets in him, that first of all, that's good that he recognizes it. And then secondly, don't like have the tendency to want to run away from it, but to sit with it. And sometimes we don't really understand what that means, but you let those feelings you really let those feelings, even if it's painful and uncomfortable, and you just sit with it and just watch it and feel it, and it soon will separate and dissipate. And so the more, I used to be a highly sensitive person. And so I feel like the more that I've done that, the more and more that it's not a part of me anymore. So that's what I would say.
So sit back in presence and watch the experience of being hurt.
Right. Or being like, if somebody says something that offends you or makes you feel a certain way, just acknowledge it and feel it. Feel where it's coming from and how it feels. And the more and more you get into that, the more and more it goes away. At
Thank
least
you.
that's been my experience.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So allow it this business of presence as well. Allow the hurt feelings to be there, and they'll dissolve.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with feeling, I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, I should be beyond that because, I'm spiritual or whatever, but things come up and we have to deal with it, because if we don't, then it will come up again. So I've just been doing that lately. Every time I feel anything that's kind of weird, I just allow myself to feel it and not run away from it, deal with it, let it leave, and not beat myself up for feeling that, because I shouldn't be feeling that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
April, did you want to say something about being highly sensitive and gets overwhelmed?
Yeah, I think what everybody else said is also true. I myself take many deep breaths when I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed. I also do the breathing through the heart center, where you pretend to breathe in through your heart. That links your centers you, links your brain and your heart. But I'm looking more at his words of blaming and the other part of the comment. So I think that, what the other panelists said is perfect. And we definitely need to learn to be with these negative emotions. We need to, the funny thing is that uh, we think that we need to get away or get rid of or change or run from these emotions. And I guess I'm at the point where you see Eckhart laugh and you think, why does he laugh when it's but I kind of laugh now because it's like, where are you going to run? They're inside of you. You can't run. They're right there, right? You run to Florida, they're still there. So anyways, to be with the emotions is important, just to acknowledge the emotion. I think that is very true, that if you just acknowledge it, it lessens it first. And then I think this one might be leading more to the stories attached to the blaming, the negative, that is going inside of this person, and they are starting to tell themselves a story about it. And that's, if you're already overwhelmed and you're sensitive, and then you start to tell yourself a story based off of what somebody has said, blaming or whatever, that is going to make you much more sensitive and much more upset. So being mindful to not start those stories, to not start that pattern of everybody thinks that I'm the bad guy, everybody thinks I'm bad. So I would also ask that they not only do the breath work, but also to try to stop the mind, stop the stories, and to come up with their own definition of who they are, what they are, and their self-worth is what I would do.
Perfect. Thank you, April. I think that's one of the biggest pointers that Eckhart gives is not to make up a narrative. The facts of the situation are always neutral, he says. If you state the facts, they're very neutral. I think Travis and I went over this last time about the fact that how does Eckhart, we were talking about polarity, right, Travis? How non-polarized Eckhart's speeches, right? He chooses words like life situation. He doesn't say bad situation, good situation, horrific situation. He just says life situation. So very neutral, right? My father was a violent temper, gunpowder, a powder keg kind of violent temper, but the fact of the situation is he had a violent temper. That's it. He says it very like normal, like as though he's eating like raw. I mean, he's eating peanuts, right? Popcorn. My father had a violent temper. So see, and eating celery, yeah. Fact of the situation is my father had a violent temper, and that's it. No blame, no hurt, no this thing. So perfect. Don't make a story out of your very good advice. Don't make a story. Look at the facts exactly how they are, and that's it. That's all there is to it. So perfect. Thank you. You're coming up with really good stuff. Kelly, your turn, sir. Thank you.
Being being sensitive and being overwhelmed is a pattern. It's a belief structure in a story that we believe about ourselves, that we have to be overwhelmed, that we do not have control. I really like what Travis, Louise, and April have said about the breath work. Breathing is so important. This is why I love Qigong and why I teach it, because it's one of the main benefits that I've received, becoming aware of my breath and being able to connect with my breath no matter what's going on in the outside world. There's a great book out there called The Highly Sensitive Person. I've had a few copies of it over the years, and alongside what Louise said, I used to be a highly sensitive person as well, until I understood the structure of the stories that I was telling myself about needing to believe in being overwhelmed by every trigger and being over emotional. And sometimes, the reason why people are highly sensitive is because we're also highly ethical and highly principled. And we have a hard time understanding how other people cannot be so ethical or so principled or care even half as much. Being very a very caring, compassionate, loving person, that was one of my biggest learning experiences growing up, is understanding that not everyone understands how to be loving or kind or compassionate. And, everyone is in a different place. And to not take it personally. That was probably the biggest gift I ever gave myself, was finally realizing, not to take it personally and to observe the trigger, observe what I was feeling, and to not believe that I have to be overwhelmed, to start choosing to understand that I did not have to be overwhelmed, that I could step back into observation and let myself feel everything that was coming up and access the real information of the learning experience of whatever was being thrown at me from the external world, and watching my mind and how the triggers happened and how the program wanted me to be overwhelmed. Breathwork is incredibly essential to step beyond that pattern of being overwhelmed.
Thank you, Kelly. I couldn't say anything more than breathing. Aline, do you have anything to contribute to a highly sensitive person and gets overwhelmed?
Funny because Kelly brought up a book and I have it over there.
Highly sensitive person?
But I'm adding that it's in the pile of books that I'm ready to get rid of. It is the highly sensitive person. I've had that that's an old book. I've had that for a long time. But yes, I'm a highly sensitive person. Highly sensitive person, not just in my dealings with others and needing that control of um, relationships and like how other people perceive or react, but also in my environment. So sounds and smells and lights, and all of it. But a lot of the things that were mentioned, I completely agree with the rest of the panelists, but I would just add my own personal like journey that I've had with it over the last year because I started meditation first, not as like a way to really get rid of the sensitivity. I didn't think you could. Like I did it as more to help ease my mind, I guess. So my initial reason for starting meditation wasn't to get rid of those symptoms. But in starting with meditation, when I read The Power of Now a few, maybe a month into my meditation journey, when I read the book for the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, I could actually do this. Like, so I can, not resist. I can accept things and I can allow things that are bad, so-called bad, to just be, to feel those things that are overwhelming. And I just started making space for things. And I think the only reason why I was able to was because I'd already started that meditation journey. Otherwise, I don't think I could have read that book. But because I'd already had that practice in place, like I was able to read that and really stop and think about it. And then just that change to allowing things to just be and not resist, the suffering reduced. And now, obviously, my meditation journey is very more in depth than it was before. And now I just focus more on like the stories because they still come up. But now, like when they come up, I'm like, really? Or I'll laugh at it and be like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, why is that even popping into my head? But now my reaction is different. It's more of acceptance and response, not reactivity like it used to be. But that's my personal experience.
Thank you so much, Eileen. So the other antidote to it is actually a stillness practice. Do a meditation or take up a daily meditation so that you're more in the observer, what Louise was saying, right? The witnessing presence is there that helps you with absorbing whatever is hurt or blame. Again, hurt and blame, like April says, is actually a judgment that we are making a judgment of the life situation. I think in chapter 2 or chapter 3's discussion in the Oprah webcast, there was a woman that comes up on Skype and tells this exact story that she is a highly sensitive person. And Oprah actually, even before Eckhart could speak, she said, you're identifying, that's become your identity. So know that when you label yourself, I'm a highly sensitive person, it's an identity. And the first thing Eckhart says is take off all the identities. You're not a mother, you're not a father, you're not a son, you're not a daughter, you're not, take those roles off, take the identities off. You're not your resentments, you're not your grievances. So that's what we can offer to you. I think Lakshmi responded in the chat as well. Oh, she has a question. I was reading Gary Zukov's The Seed of the Soul. He says, from the point of view of the soul, all of its incarnations are simultaneous. All personalities exist at once. I need you to explain this. I will take a stab at this and then I'll move through the panel. It is a synchronicity because I was withholding this information. So Lakshmi tends to ask those questions that Travis goes, why do you even ask those questions? Right, Travis? Why do you even think of the other incarnations? So
I like this one. It gets me pretty excited. So
it gets you pretty excited, right?
Yeah.
So it is very, very coincidental, Lakshmi, that I'm actually listening. So I finished the book, The Nature of Personal Reality by Jane Roberts, who channels this entity called Sept. The second book that I've started is Sept Speaks. And in Sept Speaks, he says that we are actually simultaneously in 7 centuries at the same time. And there are 7 moment points. And I don't know if these 7 moment points are actually our 7 chakras, that we are in connection with our 7 personalities. So at a given time, so maybe Gary Zukov, when he was in his stillness, had some kind of intuitive understanding that this 3-dimensional world is not the only world that I'm existing in at this point in time. That's why one of the descriptors that Gary Zukov uses is we are multisensory beings, like Kelly says, multidimensional, right? So the dimensional is that we are not just in this lifetime. Kelly, did you want to start? Because it may be your favorite topic, then I'll give it to Travis because he's super excited. For the first time, I saw a big smile on Travis. So go ahead, Kelly, and then I'll give it to Travis.
Oh yeah, this is an exciting question. I love this kind of topic. I'm a firm believer in the multidimensional aspect of human existence. I am someone who has grown up being able to access other embodiments, other timelines, other reflections of myself. And that was sort of like the big thing when I was a kid. I just daydream and lose like 3-4 hours just living out a story or experiencing other information. And it is one of the things that Qigong has really helped me with in terms of being present in my physical body, because there are spaces that a person can access where you can get lost in the feeling of accessing all this information. The information can overwhelm you and just carry you away. I've read Gary Zukov's book, Seed of the Soul. It's a good book, great information, great concepts. The reason why people have a hard time understanding how our souls could be having simultaneous experiences is because we are so attached to a linear existence. We believe that time is real, and we believe that time runs in one direction, not in 36. You know, and the nature of reality, quantum physics, you can get into, you know, particle physics to explain this in a scientific way. But the reality is that we are stardust. We are bound together by energy. Every electron in our body has its own vibrational frequency, and everything in our body energetically is information. even though we have this third dimensional expression of all of our soul's present moment, literally. So for our mind to understand how our soul, something that cannot be comprehended by the intellect, it has to be felt, connecting to the cosmic ocean, and the greater aspects of creation are not something that the mind can understand. This is why being in the body and being aligned with your heart is so important, because then you give yourself the language to be able to feel those deep spaces. I'm going to try and keep this short, because like there's just so much. The soul is multidimensional. It does not believe in linear time the way our conditioned three-dimensional mind does. It's that simple. You don't need anything else to understand. And there's a lot of information in the other dimensions, in the other deeper aspects of the energy that our soul is actually made of. All of the energy in every electron bond in our body has information, is multifaceted. Our soul just operates on multiple levels at once. And, you know, science is beginning to sort of like go, oh, hey, look, all these people back then, like these texts and stuff, somebody knew something, because we're starting to prove this with science. You know, and one of the basic principles of physics is that you cannot destroy energy. Energy just is simply transmuted. So, you know, when we pass on, what we consider death is just a threshold. When our third dimensional body disappears or decides to no longer operate in this reality, it gets, you know, that energy just goes, oh, we're going over here now. That's the way energy works. It's pure science. You get into metaphysics, is what I said before. The soul is eternal. The soul has multiple dimensions that it operates in. That's just the way it works.
Thank you, Kelly. And Lakshmi, since you always ask about the karmic aspect to it, what Seth says is the changes that we make in this lifetime actually affects. So if we are becoming more kinder, more compassionate in this lifetime, then our past lifetime gets changed as well as a future lifetime. So that's what we are affecting through making changes in this lifetime. I know April will say something more about it. She's going to know. Travis, go ahead, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Well, so in looking at the question, and thank you, Lakshmi. I really appreciate this question. It's a fun challenge to attempt to meet. And what stands out to me initially is when it says from the point of view of the soul. The first thing I ask is, I go, whose soul? Is it, is it Poonam's soul? Is it Travis's soul? Is it Eileen's soul? Is it Lakshmi's soul or Kelly's soul? Like, and so to me, as most honestly as I can say right now, I don't, and it doesn't seem as though any of us have our own existence apart from life, or God, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the most appropriate name would be, but there is a who. There is a self. And what I see, I find myself from time to time in states of being where even in these panels, I look at the screen and it's as though each of you, including Travis, is a facet of who I am. It's reflecting me back to myself. And so we're all it's like this multifaceted gem that you could hold up into the light, and every which way you turn it, you see something new that touches you so deeply, and we all add to it. And we are all facets or aspects of the one and only deep, true self, our deepest self. And so that's where it brings me, the place it brings me to is to look at it in a way where I can go, perhaps my deepest self is not different from your deepest self. And it's not different from, so to me, that statement works very well. And what I really like about it too is how he says, you know, it says all of its incarnations are simultaneous. All personalities exist at once. That's a powerful statement that undoes time. It's like, was it, I can't remember it exactly. Was it Jesus said before Abraham was, I am? It's similar in that way. You go, what just happened? Because he undid linear time in just a few words. And so there's tremendous power in that, because what it does is it brings the attention and puts the emphasis on now, which is always. And so that's kind of how I look at it. I know I have times where I'll have little moments, maybe I'm just driving or something, and it just hits me, and I might laugh out loud, because it seems crazy to think that Travis could be the entirety of who I am. That just seems ridiculous. It's Travis is limited in every way. I was born on a certain date. I'll die on a certain date. I'm whatever. I'm 5'8", so I'm not whatever other height. I'm bald, so I don't have whatever other, like whatever it is. There's all these things. So it's absolutely limited, and utterly definable. And it seems almost crazy to think that I could identify with that. That just seems very limiting, to let that be my sense of who I am. And so I think it's a very powerful statement, and I think that is, in light of conversation around reincarnation, I think that might be part of how, is like, because we're seeing time in a linear way, we're creating it, and you create it and create it and create it in this cycle that isn't broken until one can see that linear time is infinitely less real than the timeless reality of what is and who we are. And I think that's the beginning of the realization of our shift in sense of identity, moving over to that deeper self instead of being identified with all of the limitations. So I'm going to stop there. I don't know if that's the strongest point to land on, but I'll just close right there. So thanks.
Thank you for sharing that very important point, Travis. I know, how you know that you are connected to the other. So I don't know how many of y'all know that Travis actually asked Eckhart a question on the 2020 Conscious Manifestation Q&A. So you wouldn't believe it. It's like a panel like this, and there are many this thing. So I missed his name. So I had to come back towards the end when they show everybody all over again. I came back and I said, I don't know what it is about this person. He was very, very like centered. I mean, there were other people that asked questions. There was no connection with the other people. But the moment Travis asked the question, I almost thought Eckhart looked like this, and he paused. When you said, I'm a musician, I developed music that is very present centered. I almost thought he was going to offer you, why don't you create music for me? I wanted him to offer you something of that sort. So that this thing of sharing like a public facing that Travis should face something that is public facing, I was like connected. Then I wrote down his name, and then I looked for him. He is not visible on social media. Like he's not part of the conscious manifestation course. I went and looked at the group. I went into Eckhart Tolle's community, whatever this day, 150,000 people group. He's not a member of that group. I was like, where is this person? He's nowhere to be found. And so then I searched on Facebook, and of course, Travis came up just because he offers some kind of group meditation. His search came up, and I was like, I am going to leave it to the universe. I feel connected. I think he can make a contribution. Let me ask him, right? Fearlessly. I said, I'm going to ask him if he's going to come be on the panel. He responded. He said, yes. That is a connection. That is the connection. If you cannot experience oneness in that moment, that something happened, you took a name, you messaged them, they said yes. Like April suddenly messaged, you were posting, and I said, why don't you just ask? She just asked, can I be on the panel? Right? Those synchronicities, if you cannot recognize the oneness of that synchronicity, then there is a cutoff, and then that person needs to go deeper, because in the depths of who we are, to the same point, what I would say is last week when we had the Q&A, I don't know, something magical happened. We were like in a joyous state. Then I saw Travis post something joyfully. I was like, wow, like we can feel it, the oneness. Then Kelly posts something about some video that you were doing virtual, like joyfully he posted something about doing online qigong lessons, right? I was like, see the connection, see the oneness. One event, then that led to it's just like a domino effect. You feel joy, and it just starts to flow out. That's the one consciousness expressing itself through so many forms. So feel it. Thank you, Travis, for sharing that. That was incredible. Appreciate it. Louise, did you want to say something?
I think this is just great. I think everyone is really, I agree totally. I think everything's right on. And especially, I think what towards the end, what you were saying, that just really hit home too, about that connection and the synchronicity. And it's, everything's just right on. I really appreciate all the answers and agree with it totally.
Thank you, Louise. And I think I found you the same way, right? You were responding on one of the
And then and then right after that, do you remember I sent you a private message with the picture, because I was driving through the mall and it said Punam Furnishings, and I was all, what? And you're manifesting my name. And then the same thing with Travis. I was like messaging him, and I saw he's from Berkeley, or in Berkeley, and I'm like, oh, we just moved from the San Francisco Bay Area. And there's just connection. And then I said my pen name was Sage, and his name is Sage for his music. So there's a lot of things like that, and I love that.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. April, did you want to say something about multidimensional?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I can say anything more than what's been said. I think on this particular question, I think that she means it more in a personal sense, as far as like what Travis has said and what you have said is, I mean, that's just awesome. That's going to resonate with me for days. But I think because I love those synchronicities, and they still are amazing. Still, you never get tired of those. But I think this one is, She's pointing to a more personal about my own soul. How are all my incarnations here at the same time? Is what I think she's pointing to. How do all personalities exist at once? And I don't think that I think it is very hard to understand and very confusing. But again, I do think that it goes back to the energy. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. And it goes back to because energy can't be destroyed, in essence, your past will always be there, right? And that life, that experience will always, in a sense, be there. The future one, I think, is the one that's a little bit harder to grasp of, the next lifetime, and I'm living in some different house and I have a different car and I don't have kids this time. Like, really? That one's there too? So I don't know if I fully understand it all, but I think it is related to energy and the fact that energy can't be created nor destroyed. But absolutely. And it's so funny that you just said that. Again, synchronicity. I just had a conversation with somebody about how if you heal your past, or you heal yourself currently, you heal your past and your future. Yeah. So yes, we're right on it here. Yeah.
It's amazing. And this book was written, Sept Speaks was written in 1971, 72. I don't know why this knowledge is not widespread in the United States, because Jane Roberts, so Abraham Hicks is well known for law of attraction, right? But that's who I actually found out about. What is that? The nature of personal. Yay! He has the book. Have you read it? You're on mute.
Sorry.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I've read it about 2 or 3 times.
Isn't it incredibly amazing?
Yep. Yeah, it's great material. Yep.
Thank you. Since we don't have any more questions here, I'll go to the second question that was posted. Mehtab wrote, after understanding ET's wisdom on reality of life consciousness, I cannot achieve it consistently. How to change my state of being into consciousness living? Did y'all get the question?
Could you repeat it once more?
What is going on in each one of you right now? Somebody asked, why is there something weird going on? Synchronicity is going on. We're feeding the oneness.
He added a smiley face, so I don't know. I'm not sure. Mike's always one of the first ones here, and he's always commenting in the post. So
thank you. I'm hoping it's not a question, it's just a joy. Right now, we are joyful. Gratitude. Louise, what's going on inside of you now? What's going on with you now?
Gratitude.
April? Thank you.
I'm having lots of joy, lots of fun.
Thank you. Kelly?
Joy and gratitude.
Thank you. Travis?
Yeah, joy and gratitude, a sense of connectedness. I've just really been enjoying this panel more and more.
Thank you, Travis.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eileen. So after understanding ET's wisdom on reality of life, consciousness, I cannot achieve consciousness consistently. How to change my state of being into conscious living? April, do you want to start?
So for me, what I did, I was searching. I wanted to find it. I wanted to find peace. So that's the start. And it sounds like they have started that. learning. And I think for me, the biggest thing was to notice the pain body. I think that was the biggest thing, the pain body that I had with all of these stories and all these messages and reasons or excuses as to why I had a right to be upset, or I had a right to be sad, or I had a right to feel these ways, which was really just a conditioning pattern that I didn't want to have anymore. So maintaining it for me was one of the biggest things that I do. And I got this not necessarily from Eckhart. It was actually from, I don't know if you guys have heard of Bentatino Massario. Have you ever heard of him? No. Well, he says for 2 to 5 seconds a day, multiple times a day, remind yourself that I am not this body, I am spirit. I am not this body, I am soul. And so that is one of the big things that I started to do when things would happen, to remind myself, I'm not this body, I'm not this emotion, I'm not this sensitive, I'm not this whatever, and that I am a soul. And if in my eyes, soul, I choose to call it God, that's my word. He's never sick. He's never sad. He's never depressed. And if I'm part of that, then neither am I. I'm always well. So those were a couple of the really big things that I did to maintain it. The other big thing I did was practicing acceptance. The tire is flat. It is already flat. Me being mad or sad or depressed or anxious is not going to unflatten the tire. It's already flat. My choice is, okay, now what? Because I can waste my time being mad or upset, but when I'm done, so those are some of the big things that I did to maintain it. And then as you do that, I find that you just continue to grow. So,
Thank you, April.
thanks.
Louise, did you have something to add? How do I move to conscious living?
Well, I believe the first thing to recognize is that it takes commitment. And so there has to be, you have to fit it into your daily life somehow, because it's something that grows with you as you are committed to it every day. So if you say are, meditating one day and then skipping 2 or 3 days and off into your other world or whatever, and then wonder, why am I not able to maintain this? That's probably why, because it has to be something that you're, like you brush your teeth every morning, like it's just has to be something you commit to, and then it does become part of your routine, or and the more and more you do it, the more and more you grow, and the more and more you see things. And before, when I started getting up at 4:30 in the morning, it was like really difficult, because I'd been, all of a sudden I had this little infant baby that was getting up every couple of hours, and I was bottle feeding and changing. But I was committed that I was going to do this. And now it doesn't even feel like a problem. Like, most of the time I get up at 4, wake up at 4 naturally. And I'm like excited to get into my, spiritual work. So I would just say that's the one thing that came up to me, is just having that commitment, and I think once you have that commitment, it leads you to where you need to go next. And also things come to you. The less you seek, the more it comes to you. And I really have found that a lot in my life. Like, the more and more I just am concerned with being centered, the more things come to me that, I might have fought for and tried really hard to get. So I think that's another thing about meditation, is just to not have the expectations, just accept wherever you're at, and however, it just works out. Just trust that, the universe is going to work things out for you.
Thank you, Louise. Perfect. Make it a routine. Both April and Louise have accepted a routine that spiritual practices like brushing teeth. So thank you, April and Louise. Eileen, did you want to contribute to, you've changed your life too.
Oh
So
yeah, absolutely.
thank you.
Something I mentioned a little bit earlier is like I don't even feel like I didn't even know that I was unconscious. Like I didn't understand what that even meant. I really truly believe that the only reason why I was even able to comprehend that and digest that was because I already had access, like you said, to stillness. Like I already had, through my meditative practice, I was able to like sit with that and then like, oh, wait a second. Okay. And then work with it. And you mentioned something, one of you mentioned something a few minutes ago. Sorry, Zoe walked in, distracted me a little. But it's, for me, it started with having the accountability. So there's people who can just start a new practice and, it can be haphazard, or they might just decide they're going to start waking up at 4 o'clock every day and they just do it. But for me, like I had to have something that was holding me accountable to start that meditation journey. So once I had that, for me, it was like a meditation app. But once I had that, like it was in every morning practice. That is the first thing I did when I woke in the morning. And I still do a year later, over a year later now. But then obviously I have other times in the day that I do it now too. But that's kind of my, the thing that anchors me is that every single morning, that is like the first thing that happens in every single one of my days. Sometimes it falls apart an hour later, like today, but typically it gets me through most of the day.
Thank you, Eileen. Travis, did you want to say something about conscious living? How do you change to conscious living? Thank you.
Well, I agree with everything that April and Luis and Eileen has said, and I definitely think that if that intention is there, like as April was kind of saying, and that motivation is there, and what I've noticed in my life, I feel like I've been really lucky, and I think without realizing it, maybe until later on, I was drawing things to me because I wanted it. I was ready for it. I wanted to be living a more conscious life. I wanted to realize myself on a deeper level. Life could really see that, and so life, like all I've ever wanted to do is be enlightened and make music. But I've fallen into being a caregiver over the past 20 years. That was never a dream of mine, but it's been huge in my practice. I really love service and selfless action. I think it has it can really help to dissolve the separate sense of self. And for me, in that practice, in that daily practice of being there with folks, that helping them do things they can't do on their own and sharing with them, I know that it could be me in that position. It's just arbitrary that I'm the one tying the shoe and the other one is the one having their shoe tied. So you see that these roles are interchangeable, and it's just haphazard that I'm in the role I'm in. And that I know I'm a huge fan of Nisargadatta, and I've heard him say that love is love is seeing yourself in the other and seeing the other in yourself. And so there's something that happens. So I really think that, and you know, I'd have to try to check and cross-reference and look at different wisdom traditions down the ages, but I think there might be at least a couple that have probably a grouping of maybe like somewhere between 5 and 10 basic pillars of practices, lifestyle practices that are going to help one to be more present and help one to get more deep. So one of them is oftentimes is service. Another is community or spiritual community. So even like what we're doing right now, this helps strengthen that, to keep checking back in. It has that accountability for it. It has that it just has, it adds meaning and purpose because we're all sharing in it together. And so community, spiritual community is another big one. Another one I think is just acknowledging that you have a human body. And so respecting that it needs sleep, it needs proper nutrition, it needs to be moved around a bit here and there. And then another thing too, I think is just, you know, I'm just personally such a huge fan of having a regular meditation practice because I'm aware that I have a mind that I have not found the off switch on, and that I can at best turn it down, sometimes turn it off for a while, and then it just pops back or whatever. So I'm aware of the challenges that come along with being a human being and having a psychological self and a mind that I meditate every day. That helps tremendously. And so I think if one's really, you know, you can tap on and all those different angles, you know, as they all come together, that could be really, really powerful to approach it from more than just one angle. And I, you know, I think to kind of echo what, at least what I was hearing from what Eileen was saying is that it felt kind of like you were touching on just that, like when you do make a commitment to yourself and you are making big changes, changing one's behavior is one of the most difficult things that we can do. And so you just kind of keep getting back on the horse, you know, until it just becomes kind of naturally ingrained in you. I think Louise was kind of saying that too, that then it actually, as I have one friend, he puts it where he says, at a certain point, it becomes more weird not to do it than to do it. That's a critical threshold to cross over. And so I think that happens. And so when we're learning and training new habits, new patterns, just to recognize that that point comes where it starts to feel more weird at a certain point to not do it than to do it. And they become habituated, it does get easier. And so just to kind of stick with whatever practice is, and that if the intention is there, I think life will bring certain things in the same way that it's brought me these blessings, these, you know, community and my work and different things that help nurture my presence practice. So, yeah.
I love I can't find the off switch to my.
Well, that's
Mine.
borrowed from from Eckhart Tolle there. So yeah.
So, thank you. Kelly, did you want to speak about conscious living? Thank you.
So I'm a very unique individual in that I've had my Qigong practice from a very, very young age, from just threshold of being, you know, into my teen years. And meditating for 3 hours a day, that was a big thing for me, just having that routine, having that space, having that discipline. And, you know, for anyone out there who is working on being conscious and being present, know that it's a constant refinement and it's a constant evolution and it's a constant progression. So stepping in and out of those spaces of being conscious and not conscious and hijacked into an emotional event and pulled out into someone else's drama, that is normal. Those are the moments that are gifts of learning. So this is part of the normal process. So the fact that you are conscious, that you are stepping in and out of those spaces, that you are stepping into awareness and into being present, and you are aware that you're doing this, but you can't manage it, you cannot manage it all the time, is actually really important and really key, because what you need to understand is that you are actually giving yourself some major keys to your own language of those contrasts, so that you know more and more when you step out of being present. And this is what my experience has been, where when I began to I started off resisting not being present, like resisting. I didn't want to think about it. I'm like, not doing my practice. I'm not, like, I got hijacked. I'm like getting all triggered and overwhelmed. And then I realized what I was really doing is I was resisting feeling myself. I was resisting letting myself be present. I was resisting feeling what I was actually feeling. This sort of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, in terms of letting ourselves just feel what we're feeling, letting ourselves just have those feelings and not beat ourselves up for it, to acknowledge the space that we're in, to accept and to be grateful for the learning experience, because everything is the learning experience. Everything is the research, so that we can understand how to be more present. I could talk about Qigong. I could talk about my martial arts and how they gave me such a profound toolbox of understanding. But I'm going to give you a completely different point of reference and a completely different available tool that anyone can do. And this came up in a session with a friend of mine that I did body work with, have done body work with for a while, years and years and years ago, when I first started with her. And she asked me, like, where's your breath? I'm like, what do you mean? Where's my breath? It's like, my breath is right here. And she's like, okay, follow it. It's like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, how long can you follow your breath? I'm like, well, I meditate for like 3 hours a day and stuff like that. And then we had this amazing conversation about how I was attached egotistically to what I believed was discipline, and not actually being present, where I was actually controlling my experience and not actually letting my experience just happen. So I asked myself the question, and we had this conversation, and it's like, how can I, like, train myself to be present, to be aware of my body, and to be aware and present with what I'm feeling all the time? And I went, hey, I could wear a watch that has a little silent buzzer on it that goes off, and I could use that to remind myself to be present. So I did that, and I started off with setting it for every half hour, where it would go off every half hour. And that was actually pretty easy. So I went, okay, go from 20, half an hour to 20 minutes to 15 to 10. And I eventually got down to 5 minutes, where it would buzz on my wrist every 5 minutes. And that's when I really began to understand the discipline of being consistent and constantly present. My Qigong practice and my Bagua, my Kung Fu really accelerated it all. But the real turning point was it's almost about 20 years now, when I wore that watch, and I wore it for 2.5 years. The first 3 months were really difficult when I got it down to the 5 minutes, because it would trigger me, because like, I have to pay attention to this. It's like, and I wanted to make a big deal out of it. My ego wanted to make a big deal out of it. And about like 2 weeks of like being irritated with this going off every 5 minutes, I went, oh darn, this is me not following my breath. This is me sort of thinking I know what's going on. This is my ego going, we don't need this because we're in control, and not actually understanding how to be present, not understanding that what I was trying to give myself was the actual toolbox for feeling how to be present. And that it actually was a lot more simple than my ego was trying to make it. And that little buzzer on my wrist, after I got used to the 2.5 minutes, where I would email, in front of email, like for 8 hours a day, on the phone, in the office, for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, I would take a breath, take a couple breaths, and wiggle my toes. Or just breathe and let myself feel my body wherever I was. Whether I was walking, whether I was sitting on the bus, whether I was sitting in front of my email, whether or not I was brushing my teeth, I would wear that watch until I went to bed. And I'd put it on. It was the first thing that I put on every single morning for 2.5 years. And that was probably one of the single most important things I ever did for myself. The reason why I'm sharing this is because you can set your smartphone, but having a watch on your wrist where it actually physically connects with your body, I found to be very effective. And this is something that everybody can do. Go get a watch, wear it, set the alarm, see what you can do with 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, or, jump into 5 minutes. Because for me, my experience, my ego had a really hard time with 5 minutes at first. And this is, someone who, sitting for 3 hours a day, meditating, being all zen and stuff like that. And then this alarm is going off and I just freak out. I'm going, wow, okay, this is a lot different than my brain was, my little monkey mind was going, we don't need this because we all know everything and stuff. And then I gave myself that experience and I was like, yeah, this is a lot different than I thought it was going to be. Okay. So go get a watch, go get a timer. I kid you not. One of the most beautiful gifts I've ever given myself was being annoyed for 2.5 years that way, or just train myself that way. Simple, effective, and it will change your life.
Thank you for the tip, Kelly. Perfect. I know, April, do you have to leave in a half hour or so at 9:30?
Yeah, I mean,
In 20 minutes, right?
my house is actually pretty settled. So
You're good?
yeah,
Okay. Doing a check-in. Thank you.
thanks.
So the next question, since we don't have any questions from here, I'll bring up the topic, Kelly, that I said we should discuss in the Q&A. So one thing I want to say is whatever we say right now is offered with like the depths of humility and gratitude for the question. One of the things that I have done for the past 5 years is look at a question on the Facebook group. And if I see an opening in that individual, I will hone in. I will try to like crack your will, right? Crack your ego. So I'll keep posting something more, something more, something more, so that let me see if you'll crack. And if you don't crack, that's fine. I will accept the present moment. But there are quite a few times that people crack, right? And that I see them a couple of months later coming and saying, thank you so much for posting that. Or a week later saying, thank you so much for your help at that time. So don't take my posts as something that is an attack or consistently that why is she posting? I'm just trying to show you one more opening, one more opening, open another door. Is this the door that you need to go through? So the question that was asked was Maria, who we know. I think April may have met her during group meditation as well. Aline, you may have met Maria as well. The question was, I am feeling abandoned right now, and I need to find the thought. I absolutely need to find the thought that I need to disidentify from to let go of this abandonment. And my point was, you cannot take Eckhart's teachings that literally. When Eckhart says disidentify, the single most vital step in your life is to disidentify from your mind, do not take it literally. And there are many nuances to that. So what I want the panel to do today, and I know Kelly has offered advice, so I will start off with you, Kelly, so you can offer your advice. When somebody is feeling abandoned, and I'm sure everyone here has been abandoned at some point in their life, and I will give you, talking about the synchronicity that we spoke about, um, and I will talk about this at the very end after everybody on the panel is done. So this is Tuesday, which is yesterday that we were doing the posting, right?
Yep.
You won't believe it, synchronicity. Monday, Gracie and I take a course with Dr. Eben Alexander and Karen Noel, and they have the course live on Monday. So I hadn't seen this topic until Tuesday, but on Monday they recorded the same thing about abandonment. Look at the synchronicity, Maria. Look at the fact that the answer may be there. I don't know, but look at the why would the universe present some spiritual thought leader talking about abandonment on a Monday? So one thing about answers is that, right? You don't know where from the universe the answer is coming. Just like Travis asked Eckhart a question, I want to start public speaking or something of that sort. And the person that picked up that answer was me, right? Eckhart didn't respond. Eckhart didn't say, Travis, here's an opportunity for you to public speak. The person that picked it up was somewhere out there. I'm in Texas, somewhere out there in Texas for him. He was speaking to me. He was posing the question. So this is something that people that get deep into their inner, the multi-sensory perception that Gary Zukav is talking about, is that Travis was not asking Eckhart that question for Eckhart to learn and listen and respond to that question. That question was directed to me, that Poonam act upon his question, right? Because Poonam had to do a lot of acting. Like I had to go search for Travis all over the world before I could find Travis, but I found him. So Kelly, go ahead. You can explain a little bit more about the question and I'll be quiet for a little bit. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Poonam. Yeah, the question was about abandonment, and this gentlewoman had expressed that there's a pattern. She's aware.
She's a woman.
Yes. Oh, is it Maria? Yes. So Maria understands that there's this pattern, and that she's had 5 people whom she loves dearly leave her life without any communication, without any context or understanding of why. And this is something that Poonam and I were sort of sharing, offering context for and offering information to help her understand the pattern a little bit. And I'm trying to remember some of the things that I said, but taking information literally, and this is identifying from a thought, is not something that is what you want to do, because you want to actually engage the feeling that thought triggers, that pattern triggers, that awareness of that hurt and that pain triggers inside of you. And one of the things that I said is, like, people will attract to each other someone who reflects the lesson that they are working on learning and transcending and transmuting. Now, abandonment is something that I personally believe that everyone has dealt with, is dealing with, and will deal with to a certain extent. Now, my personal belief on the concept of abandonment, the learning experience of abandonment, the life event, is that it is actually a reflection of how we have abandoned our hearts and how we have abandoned our alignment with ourselves and how we have given up our power to the outside world and abandoned ourselves and abandoned our truth. This has been my experience, and this is where I am speaking from. Before I got married, before I found the woman that I ended up marrying and was with for 11 years, I was feeling profoundly alone. I'd had several friends actually stop talking to me. So I was very triggered, and I was feeling very, very alone. And I was having a hard time dealing with this. And, you know, Robin Williams has got a beautiful quote, God bless his soul. May he work speedily towards his next incarnation of grace. And something that he said was that, you know, being sad is one thing and lonely is one thing, but what's worse is being around people who make you feel sad even when you are with them, or lonely when you are with them. And this was part of my experience in this 11-year relationship, is feeling, even though I was with someone, feeling the reality of constant loneliness and sadness with this person, even though we're having a great time, and not wanting to look at the space of what I was creating, that I was denying what I was actually feeling inside, that I was denying the fact that I was actually abandoning myself even more by trying to hide in this other person, and trying to hide what I was feeling by distracting myself with this other person. And when I finally began to have the conversation with myself, and it took a little while because, well, you know, I'm stubborn that way. When I finally began to accept that this person was not who I wanted to be with, that I was not supposed to be in this relationship, that I was just hurting myself even more, that we were hurting each other, and made the steps towards actually getting divorced and separating and ending that space and that pattern, it was one of the hardest things to look at. And if there is a pattern that is so substantial that you have 11 years of it, you know, repetitively banging your head against the wall and not looking at the actual triggers and the feelings that you are hiding from, as in, for example, having 5 people, you know, leave your life that you love deeply, looking at the concept of abandonment and whether or not the pain is actually from being profoundly attached to these other people that gave you a sense of identity. And this is one of the things that happened to me right after high school, because my best friend left and he wasn't going to tell me. And I just happened to stop by one day, and the moving van was right in front of his house, and he was moving with his parents. And so we had a conversation. It was like a huge shock to me. And suddenly, like, my best friend and the huge, huge pillar in my life was just gone. And it took a while for me to get over that. But, you know, I was still too young to understand it. I did not understand at that time that I was still ego attached to this person. And this is why it hurt so much. I was not letting myself be present with what I was feeling. So I was still trying to deny what I was feeling and suppress what I was feeling, and not look at just the simple practical reality that he was facing and that I was facing. That it was, you know, high school was done. His parents got new jobs and they were moving. And I did not want to accept that, you know, because this is someone who I'd grown up with, and this is someone who I love dearly and was my best friend. And that emotional safe space that I had was suddenly taken from me, or just removed from my life, and I didn't have it anymore. So there was a lot of pain of not feeling safe. And I know when there are deep feelings involved, that having that safety space, that space of safety, mix my words up here. When you have that space of safety and it's suddenly removed and you do not have it anymore, it can be extremely painful, and it can be extremely hard to look at the space of understanding, of just accepting and allowing that to be, and not beating yourself up over it. I mean, when I was younger, right after high school, oh my goodness, did I beat myself up? Like I thought I'd done something wrong. Years later, we talked, and it was just like, and he explained everything. And I was much more mature and able to completely understand and accept what had gone on. So yeah, abandonment is something that is very much, has been a very key element in my learning through various experiences, but most importantly, realizing in my life event of my marriage that was not conducive and well, I cannot say that it was not conducive to my growth, because boy, did I sure learn a lot. But not looking at myself. I mean, that's what I did for 11 years, is not looked at myself. And so I abandoned myself for 11 years in that relationship. And, what I understand now is that abandonment is actually a lot more, even though we have all these external events and these people come into our lives and who can be removed in these spaces, who can be removed. I know that from my experience, my personal experience, my own personal belief, that abandonment has everything to do with how much we have abandoned our connection with our hearts.
I think that is the key point, Kelly. Even Dr. Eben Alexander said the same thing. He said abandonment is not so much about people abandonment, it is how much we are not connected to source, how much we are not, no longer feeling our connection. And that's what today's topic was, right? Like, how do we, Travis said, we feel the oneness. When we lose that connection with oneness, right? That what is in Travis is in me, what is in Louise is in me, right? I recognize myself in the other. If you cannot do that, then you are abandoning yourself in this moment.
Yep.
If you cannot see yourself in Poonam, or you cannot see yourself in all those posts that were posted, then that means you are already executing the same thing you're judging is what you are executing in this moment. You are abandoning yourself. You have no connection to source, right? Because you dismissed everybody's, like people said, surrender. She dismissed that notion that surrender was it.
Yep.
Surrender is the first step. The first modality of awakened you doing is surrender. You have to surrender. You have to humble yourself to that experience. So thank you. Thank you for that tip. That the primary thing is of abandonment is abandoning ourselves from a connection to source. If that connection is there, there is no way we are not experiencing the fullness of life that Eckhart says, right? Jesus said, the fullness is within you, right? The abundance is within you. When you feel abundant, then you give out abundance. So the sense of lack and incompleteness is within you. So thank you, Kelly. April, I know it's getting late for you. So did you want to speak about abandonment? Thank you. Thank you, Kelly.
I think abandonment is a universal. I think it's a universal thing that we as humans go through. When you first said it, my initial thought was that just us coming here, I think we're almost born with abandonment, right? Because we come here and we leave source and we leave our home and we leave, and it, it's so shocking. But for me, with the abandonment issues that I had in my family, in my life, my mother actually gave me and my brother up to my father. So my abandonment issues started I believe I was around 5-ish. So very young. But the idea of oneness that we are all connected, of me seeing myself in somebody else, that to me is the healing process for abandonment. Because unless you are born gifted and born very awake and very spiritual, you don't understand that, right? All you understand is everybody leaves me. What the heck? And you do have a pattern. And I think some of the pattern is one, I don't know all the details about this person, but one, it is the people that are leaving or the people that are abandoning, it's what is their level of consciousness? What is their level of functioning? What is their, what is their issues that they deal with? So it may not be personal per se at all, but we take it that way, right? We always make everything about us. I was friends with a cook once. I'll tell you this real quick. I was friends with a cook once. With my first husband, his friend was a cook, and we were at the restaurant, and we were waiting for food. We were just visiting, and he looked at me and he said, "Don't you know everybody in the world is the most important person in the world right now? They all want their toast right now." So, right. And I thought that's so true that we do that, right? I get to, you drive up to Subway, you want your sub right now, right? So one of the things is I would think to look at what's going on in those people that have done the abandonment per se. And then also, again, we go back to life contracts. To me, abandonment is the lesson of needing to learn self-love and the lesson of learning oneness, and that also I can never truly be alone because I'm part of source. So to me, that all ties into that.
And that's one of the tips that I gave her, that
Mm,
it could have been in the past lifetime. She has abandoned people. A past life. So the way, I don't know if that speaks of the nature of personal reality. It talks about if you were a male and you subjugated females, then the next lifetime you're going to be a female so that you can experience the same derogatory behavior and
yeah.
the same kind of subjugation, right? So my take on her was, can you generate compassion for the fact that if she can see that maybe in a past lifetime I may have done the same thing, right? Generate compassion for this person, that they're just there for that soul contract. They're offering the same lesson that I needed to learn in my past lifetime that I did not learn, right? I didn't learn the lesson of abandonment from the past lifetime. So here is the lesson being offered by, and I didn't learn it from the first person. I needed 5 people before I got the lesson where I started investigating. Like Eileen says, right? It always comes around. What goes around comes around. If you don't learn the lesson, day number 1,
Coming again.
here it is. It's offered again. Make the choice. This is free will. That is conscious living. Is now can you generate that unconditional love for the person that is abandoning you? And like Byron Katie says, right, that person is not abandoning you. You're being spared, because like Kelly's situation, if he already knew that his ex-wife was going to be caused so much misery and she would have left in the first year, he could have saved 10 years. But no, he went second year, third year, fourth year. It had to be 11
Deep learning
years before he
experience.
found out. You're on mute, I think.
Thorough, very thorough.
Right?
Yeah.
That lesson really had to be cemented in, right?
I am still benefiting from that gift of 11 years. It's like, that's
You're
literally,
reaping the benefits.
that's how I look at it. I look at it as a gift now, because I'm like yeah. Yep.
Light,
Yep.
ease and lightness.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, April. That soul contract, if people can understand that anything and everything that is happening. So one day my brother called me and said he lost like 60,000 rupees. I was like, no, you just returned it. They may have robbed it from you, but you just returned the money to whoever it is. Be okay with it. Just go withdraw more money and redo your credit cards and what have you, right? There's no more sorrow. There's such instant, like when you move into a state of acceptance, this beauty of meaning of surrender, move into a state of acceptance. In the past lifetime you owed them and you let go. Thank you, April. The soul contracting, I wish we do more sessions of this and people really, really understand that what they're experiencing in this lifetime, they had some kind of judgment about it. Another thing Sept says is if you had a judgment about illness, that people are ill, you were ridiculing people are ill all the time, then you'll choose illness in this lifetime to complete that soul contract. To learn through a terminal illness, you learn that in this lifetime. So beautiful, beautiful is that lesson. So thank you. Humbled by that wisdom. Travis, did you want to, you've been smiling and nodding a lot, Travis. This is your favorite topic, seems like. Go ahead.
It's funny. I put the little Zoom chat in front of my face, so I'd rather just see your faces and not be reminded of my own while I do it. So I wasn't very aware that I was nodding and smiling. But I love this. I love this question. I think it's very vital. I agree with those of us who have spoken on the panel that it really does seem to me to be universal. The abandonment. I remember hearing Eckhart Tolle say in the Conscious Manifestation course somewhere that that everybody will disappoint you. I don't know if I'm saying it verbatim, but he said something along those lines. And I know what he's speaking to there. I don't think it's entirely true, because if we're not looking for what we can't find in them, then we do cease to be disappointed. And so so let's see, there's a couple of things I want to touch on here, and I'll see if I can tie it all together, but it's just that so let's see. So yeah, I mean, there is that universal sense of abandonment, of being alone, because we all feel alone here, and it's an observable fact, right, that that every person we encounter is going to be ultimately unreliable. We can't count on them to always be there, even if it's time that takes them away and they don't choose to leave. And so I think this is what Eckhart is pointing to when he says that. And so for me, what I feel like has helped me grow through all this stuff and heal through all this stuff is to go, okay, well, even if I wanted to rely on the sun, I can't rely on the sun. If I want to rely on the moon, I can't rely on the moon. The moon won't always be there for me. The sun won't always be there for me, right? Even the sun will die. I think there's like an Eckhart talk called that or something. But and so for me, what's imperative is to go, can I get in touch with that which is utterly reliable? Is there that? Can I find that? Can I know that? Can I tap into and connect with that? I want to know the place that I can call home, that is never going to not be my home. I won't be evicted from that home. I won't be asked to leave one day. I want to know where I can hang my hat. And so that I think that in regards to relationships with other human beings, what I've found tremendously helpful and such a joy and fun thing in my life is the more that I can find and tap into that which to me is utterly reliable. It's like the mouth of the stream. It's just it's life-giving. There's just life coming from it all the time. It feeds me, it nourishes me. And if I can find that mouth of the stream of life and drink from that water, I will get what I need. And then I can ask a different question. What can I give to this relationship? Not what can I get out of it, but what can I give to it? And I find I have more to give because I've found an inexhaustible source. I found an utterly reliable source of life, of love, of belonging, and worthiness. It refreshes and restores and renews my sense of worthiness, because I can't talk about abandonment without talking about worthiness. I think that especially when we're young, when we're children, we draw these conclusions unconsciously. My parents split up when I was 2. I went to 17 different schools by the time I was 17. Once I finally had friends, I developed all these relationships, and then everything fell apart, and I moved away, and spent this. So I built something to lose it, and then I've had numerous, romantic partnerships that have ended, and I felt abandoned. And I think I was, and this is, I really thank Kelly for what you were saying. You were really tapping into a lot of the stuff I feel like I'm still really working out around, because I've seen myself repeat in romantic relationships. Unconsciously, I create a situation where I feel abandoned because I think I'm still carrying the sense of unworthiness and pain that I somehow, as a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, put together. Oh, well, they must have left because I'm not important. And so you conclude things like that, and you don't even realize you're carrying it, but then it'll show up in your life and reflect itself back to you because you're carrying those feelings. And that's what relationships are. They're a mirror held close to us, and we see all these things we never really wanted to, but very useful things. And so I feel like that's what I'm working on right now. Is I'm supposed to be alone right now. I'm very much nurturing myself, giving to myself in ways that just always getting back up on it and learning again and getting deeper into it. And so there's that healing there. And I think that, but yeah, so I don't really know a easy way to tie all that up, but just that I think that just to come back, I guess, for a moment to that's what's been so huge for me, is to find that utterly reliable source. It's here, it's no more available to one than to another. And so it's accessible. And I think for anyone who really, I know for me, when I was 17, I saw my best friend in high school. He was in touch with, what you would call God, or that deepest, highest source of life. And I saw that and I thought, he's just a regular teenager. He's just like me. And that was it. That set the trajectory of my life course, because I immediately went to go have my one-on-one. When I saw him have it, I thought, he's just a high school kid like me, but I can too. And that, I feel like that was really a mile marker or a pivotal moment in this lifetime for me to realize, by witnessing somebody else, that I wanted it. I wanted to tap into life. I wanted to find that source, and I really started to then. And so I just try to continue to nurture that. And here I am, 24 years later or whatever, I'm still working this stuff out, and that's okay too. So So yeah.
But at least you are at the point you found the eternal joy.
I mean, yes, I think, you know,
But you know the source of eternal joy.
yeah, I might slip out of it from time to time, but I do feel as though I come back. It's very much a part of my moment to moment, you know, of my everyday. So I'm grateful for that.
And that was the other pointer. I think Kelly mentioned it to her, to Maria. One of the pointers that I would pick up from your feedback, Travis, is don't ask a question on Facebook and expect another person to give you an answer. Because the answer is never going to be true for you. The wisdom is always within. So the moment you're that disturbed, something is making it so painful for you, take a nap, go to bed. That's a meditation in itself. Or do your meditation, do 2 hours of meditation. And I know, I mean, Eileen and myself know that she's not able to. She's actually living with a friend right now who constantly is very talkative. So Maria does not have alone time. So I have that compassion for her that part of her problem is the stillness is not there, right? I said, you need to get to stillness to see the emotion. But then I realized once I said that even she just retorted back to me and she said, no, you need to get into stillness. And I'm like, she's not understanding that the answer is in your stillness. The answer is not with Poonam. The answer is not with Kelly. It's not with Louise. It's not with the rest of the world. The answer is within you. You have to ask, you have to go into that non-conceptual intelligence, the part that Travis was talking about, that stream that Travis was talking about. So get to your stillness and spin off that question that, hey, why am I feeling this abandonment? What is this abandonment about, right? And then you'll know that, oh, I lost connection. I'm not still. I cannot feel the fullness of life. The fullness is what gives me joy. And that's all that is needed, whether people come and go. Uh, as Eckhart says, impermanence of form. Travis gave an amazing example of the universe teaching you impermanence of form since you were little, Travis. If you change 17 schools, then the universe is saying, did you learn the lesson of impermanence of form now? No, change another school, get you a new set of friends, a new neighborhood, a new everything, and let me teach you impermanence. You didn't learn the lesson again? Let me give you another third school. So, like his 11 years, you are 17 schools, after 17 schools. So learn impermanence of form. Eckhart has rubbed it into like totally like kind of like cemented it into us that there's always all forms are unstable. The building that he went to Malibu, and there was a huge sign that said all structures are unstable. If you can go to a new earth and know that passage really, really well, and actually know from the cellular level of your being what is impermanence of form, then you'll be able to like accept anything, however it is, your home within yourself, right? Your true home is within yourself. What is external doesn't matter. Thank you, Travis. Louise, did you want to say something about abandonment?
Just
It's a
one
beautiful
thing really.
topic.
Yeah. Just something that came up for me was just to be careful not to have that victim mentality. And along with what everyone else was saying is, life is hard. Relationships are hard. We all have trauma in some form or another, and if we allow that to and it's not saying that these hurts or these traumas aren't validated or right or didn't happen. It's to say that you know, if we stay in that, like, you know, I am always abandoned, I always this, I'm always that, then we keep ourselves stuck. So my point was just to not let that allow her to be a victim, because then there's no moving out of that space when you're in that victim mentality. And just to realize again that that's how life is, you know, we have to just move on.
Acceptance of what is, right?
And also, I don't know if she's listening right now, but I would say that, like, do anything you possibly can, like leave the house and go for a walk, you know, in the shower, meditate, like every chance, you know, wear headphones, because that's the only thing, like you said, that's going to get her grounded.
Were you there when I was giving her that?
No.
So I told her she was speaking during group meditation about having this very talkative friend.
Oh,
And
yes, I was at that.
And I told her buy a $300 pair of noise canceling headsets.
That's true. I forgot
To
about
give-
that. Yes.
To give yourself the quiet, right? So
Yes.
thank you. Thank you, Louise, for that.
Mhm.
Don't make it a victim story, because that's another identity that we're building. Eileen, do you have something with the abandonment?
I totally went into this thinking that I'm just going to listen and take it all in. And then April said something. She said that she had been abandoned by her mother when she was like 5. Actually, her and her brother given to her father, and the exact same thing happened to me, except I was 4. And
Talk
I
about
just,
oneness,
yeah, we've been talking all night about synchronicities, and
synchronicity.
I, you know, that was 40 years ago now. Don't really even think about it. I feel like that experience for me kind of is where my gratitude came from, because for me, I've kind of always been grateful for my dad, and about, you know, being with him and being raised by him and not her. But so when April said that, I thought, wow, oh my goodness, yeah, that's right. But yeah, I don't really have too much more than what's all been said to add on to it, though.
So you know what Byron Katie says to that when a mother or father, like a mother, like her daughter used to tell. So Byron Katie was an unconscious mother, right? Because she was 42 or something when she had her awakening experience. So her children have grown up with an unconscious mother. So her daughter would tell her that, Mom, you were never there for us. You were never there for us, right? Which is what abandonment of mother or father causes. That you say, Mom, you were never there for us. And Byron Katie was saying, in that action, I was telling you, mother yourself. So that soul contract that the two of you had with your mother, the mother is the soul that is your mother, is teaching you that you have, again, that lacking in completeness, that you're not connected to source. So get the mothering from within you, get that unconditional love of a mother. What is a mother? It's the feminine principle, right? Of nurturing, of gentleness, of tenderness, and unconditional love. Get it from your connection to source, which what you all are doing now. So what you did for the past year, Eileen, and how many ever years April has been doing, you're mothering yourself. You're learning, you got the lesson. You have to pat yourself in the back and say, I got the lesson, Mom. Isn't that incredible? April is saying something.
That's pretty amazing. I have come to terms with all of, I can't even begin to describe my life to you guys. But I didn't think about it that way, that, it is the Divine Mother, and that would be the ultimate lesson.
She's teaching you how to mother yourself.
Yeah. And I probably set up for, I want to learn this. So I need a mom that's going to come in and give us up to my dad. And yeah. Awesome.
Right?
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm going to real quickly go through, it's the same story with Dr. Eben Alexander. I'm going to tell y'all that story. So the Monday's lesson for Module 4 was on that Dr. Eben Alexander at age 11 days, so as a baby, was abandoned by his biological parents, were given to this neurosurgeon. The sole contract that he had with his biological family was that they had a hereditary of brain aneurysm, and he ended up with meningitis of the brain that caused his near-death experience, right? So the aneurysm, so the sole contract, and he was talking about, so if everybody can understand this sole contract, and I'll talk more about it as I learn through the modules. We are on the 4th module, there are 7, so another 3 modules. But so there was a sole contract that his biological, so he has this state of extreme acceptance, just like how Eckhart was abandoned by his mother, sent off to his father, right? In Spain. So look at all of these abandoned people, and look how amazing they turn out to be once they learn their lesson that, yes, she should have abandoned me. Yes, I should have been in Spain with my father. And yes, I should have been in England. To look at the incredible part. So that's one thing Dr. Eben Alexander said, and that the he had the state of acceptance that the sole contract with his biological family is that he should be abandoned. And in his near death experience, he saw an angel. And what he was told was that, I don't know if it was a butterfly or an angel, and he knew that that butterfly was his sister, Betsy, who was his biological sister. He didn't even know that the sister existed. Right? Isn't that incredible? So that is the multi-dimensional, multi-sensory portion to us. Then he moves to Karen Noel, who's his partner, and Karen says that the same thing, that at age 7 or something, their mother and father said, one of you make a choice. Which parent are you going to live with? Are you going to live with your father, or are you going to live with your mother? And she chose to live with her mother and abandon her father. And she said that one single, why do you leave abandonment onto a child to make a decision? And that continued, just like Travis is saying, right? That continued throughout her life. She went into relationships where she was abandoned, right? The child making that decision that, no, I'm going to live with one parent. I don't want the other parent, right? Then you're causing the abandonment, not realizing you're causing the abandonment. So that was an incredible example. And the lesson for that module is that fact that the wisdom lies within. The wisdom to what we need to know in this moment lies within. Our meditation for that session was spin off that question within. And your greatest indicator of where you are with that situation is your emotion. That's why Eckhart says, experience your inner body. Kelly and I mean, all of us have talked about inhabiting your body. At every second, inhabit your body, because your body in chapter 3 of The Power of Now, Eckhart talks about the thought will be the lie, the body is going to tell you the truth. The emotion in the body. So administering your emotion every second, what Kelly was saying, right? Every 5 minutes, check your emotions. Are you at ease and in a state of joy? If you're not in ease and state of joy, what is the irritation about? Or what is the annoyance about? And I gave an example in one of the videos that last year, after working from home for a while, I went starting to have to drive every day, right? And instead of joy, like working from home is so easy, right? You were at that peak of joy, you can go meditate, you have freedom. But then, like, I would feel like an energy drop from instead of being aligned with inner beingness. Every evening, I spun off the question, why am I feeling this change in energy? So it's even a change in energy. It's not even, oh, I'm feeling irritation. You don't even have to give it words, right? Instead of that high vibrational frequency of joy, like Travis says, it's just a change of energy, and monitor that. And that's what I was pointing out to her, that what is the emotion that you're feeling right now, Maria? Like when you feel the abandonment, what is the emotion you're feeling? The emotion is what is attracting the abandonment. So every time you feel that kind of feeling in your body, you're about to start that pattern again. Because that pattern exists in you as a vibrational frequency. Emotions are electromagnetic frequency. Thoughts are, don't look for the thought, look for your emotion, is what I was telling her. So I know Kelly looks tired. It's a long day for Eileen as well. We'll meet again next week. We can start off on this topic as well. If anything else is within y'all, any more wisdom about abandonment, it is like, I see that April had a revelation, Eileen had a revelation about her mom leaving. So this has been incredibly amazing. So deeply humbled, honor and a privilege to have all of you and all of you out there, and infinite blessings and infinite gratitude.
Thank you.
Cannot, no words to say anymore. Bye.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.